Hi guys, and welcome to this webinar on basic recipe calculation and label creation using Nutritics. My name is Rachel and I'm going to be taking you through some of our advanced features today in Nutritics. If you do have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. I'll address them at the end of the session. Otherwise, you can email us at support@nutritics.com if you have any follow-on questions or queries after this. So I'm just going to start off in our demo account here. Just to note, before I do begin, that Nutritics is a cloud-based platform. This means that all of your data can be accessed from anywhere at any time, and all of the data is saved automatically once you have a secure internet connection. Depending on the type of account you have, you may see your clients listed on the left-hand side of the page, as I do here, with your recipes and foods on the right-hand side of the page. If you're working from one of our food service or manufacturer plans, you'll find that your foods and recipes are on the left-hand side of the page with your workspace in the center of the screen, as I have here. Regardless of your account type, you can find all information on our databases and your account setup under the menu settings option on the right-hand side of the page here. So I'm going to start off this webinar by addressing a common situation in which you have a complex recipe or a master recipe which is comprised of multiple ingredients and sub-recipes. An example of a complex recipe would be a cake comprised of multiple layers. Each layer would consist of a sub-recipe or an ingredient. So it's just an explanation of what I mean by complex recipe. Today I'll actually be creating a battered cake recipe. So the first step is to click the blue start button. I'm going to start off by creating a sub-recipe. Obviously I have a number of different options listed here in front of me, but today I'm just going to select the new recipe option. I have to name my recipe firstly. You'll see a description box to the right hand side. You can give your recipe a description if you like. This is a free text field, and it also acts as a searchable field later on. So, acts as a searchable field later on, so I can search using these words at a later point if I need to. The next step would be to start entering my ingredients. Today I'll be pulling from foods in our Nutritics database. You can enter your own foods if you like. These will appear under the My Foods tab, and you can create a new food by selecting Start New Food. If you have the back of pack label information to hand, you can fire ahead and start inputting some of your own products if you like. So I've just had a look for flour here now, and you'll see a number of different options in front of me. If I can't find exactly what I'm looking for straight away, you can use the category filters to find exactly what type of food you're looking for and refine your search results further. So if I want further information on what I'm looking at, so if I want to look in more detail on the food, I can click it once to view a preview. If I click the I button here, it will open up the food, and I can find out additional info on macronutrient and micronutrient per 100 grams. I can also see any allergen indications for this food as well. So if I'm happy to use this food in my recipe, I can just go ahead and click the insert button. You can also, let's go back to my recipe here. You can also insert the recipe from underneath the search bar using the insert button here. The blue tick indicates that the food has already been inputted into your recipe. Lovely, so I'm just going to go ahead and start entering a few more ingredients. I'm pulling from our McCants and Widdowson dataset at the moment. You can find out additional information on the data sources that you're using the food codes that you see on the left hand side of the food here. And if you go to menu settings, data sources, you'll find additional information on each database. Lastly, I just want to enter in eggs. I'm going to go for eggs, chicken whole, raw. A quick usability feature before I move on to entering quantities. Just to note, you can easily move between recipes and foods that you've recently viewed by clicking on this tab here. I don't think I haven't viewed any other recipes recently, but if I was to, I could click on this tab and I could switch easily between the different recipes I've been viewing. Great. So now I've all of my ingredients and they've all been added, so I can start entering quantities and cooking methods. I can choose from one of the smart portions that you see listed here on the left hand side, or I can enter quantity manually. So I'll enter in 500 grams for my flour, 100 mils for milk. You'll see that the mils are automatically converted to grams. This is done automatically, so our system will automatically calculate mils or automatically convert mils to grams based on the density of the liquid as compared to water. And I'm just going to enter in an average size egg. Oops. So just before I move on, you'll see that to the right of the smart portion box, as I'm entering in quantity, you may have also noticed this custom field option. So this is available on our food service and manufacturer accounts, and it'll give you the option to customize your quid further, so you can hide the percentage value in your quid. You can include a short name to be included in the quid. You can also add in additional fields yourself. So for example, I can enter in country of origin, as has been done here. I can enter in additional information such as batch number or shelf life. Just by using the add field option there. I can also enable this option so that tab appears automatically after I've entered the smart portion. Right, so now I've entered in all of my recipe ingredients and the quantities. I can enter in costs of my ingredients if I wish. This will allow me to calculate cost per serving of my recipe at a later point. The cost will also be pulled through into any future recipes you use the batter in. I can incorporate tax rate and profit margin into my final cost as well if I like. You've got the option to do that within the modifiers box above. Lastly, you can add in additional costs. I'll show you how to do this at a later point. You can add in additional costs such as shipping, employee, packaging, and so on, as well as waste, can all be incorporated into the final cost per serving of your recipe. Firstly, I actually need to go ahead and add in the number of portions that this recipe gives me. So in this case, it'll be 12. This gives me, now I have my label values both per 100 grams and per 55 grams serving. And just to note as well, I'm going to leave my recipe as uncooked, so I could add in cooking methods here. However, in this case, the food is raw, so I'm going to leave it as uncooked. And before I move on to our master recipe, I'm just going to show you how to add your recipe to a folder, so this will make it easier to find your recipe at a later point. So you can see here within the account we've added in custom tags. These act as folders which can be found using the drop down here. You can add your recipe to different folders just by clicking on the tag. So I've added this to sub recipe here, and I'm also just going to add it to raw recipes. Lastly, if you do wish to share your recipe with another Nutritics user, you can easily do so just using the collaborators tool here. So you can add another Nutritics user using their email or username. Once you've added them as a collaborator, click once to enable viewing access and click twice to enable editing access. Great. So the last thing then before I move on to our master recipe, you can add your recipe to a menu here. So we do have a tool which allows Nutritics users to build both paper and interactive digital menus in-app. This will allow your customers to view menus on their smartphones. So this tool allows you to easily add recipes to your menus. I won't be covering digital menus on this webinar, but if you would like to try this feature, please do get in touch with our support team. As I mentioned earlier, the email is support@nutritics.com. So I'm just going to move on now and create a master recipe. I've completed this recipe. I'm going to close these down, and I'm just going to go back to my start, new recipe option. This time I'm going to name the recipe battered cake. So I'm going to enter in some raw fish, cake, flesh only, raw. I'm also going to enter in some oil, standard vegetable oil in this case. And lastly, I'm just going to go ahead and enter in that raw batter that I just created. So I can use the folder tab to find this, or I can search for the recipe using the search tool and then filter according to my foods and recipes. So we've obviously created a few different versions of this in earlier webinars. I'm just going to create the one I entered a few moments ago. Actually, I'll use this one here. Great, so you can see that this batter is a recipe because it has this OR symbol when inputted. You also see the OR symbol appear under the search box. Great, so I'll just start adding my quantities once again. Great, I'm going to leave the vegetable oil blank for the moment, and I'm going to enter in 1 serving of my raw batter. You'll remember that we earlier created serving size as we inputted 12 portions for this recipe, so the serving size was automatically generated for me. Thanks. Lovely. So the next step, now that I've entered in the relevant quantities, is to start adding in cooking method. So you can find the option to enter in cooking method to account for nutrient losses and gains through cooking, using the drop down here on the right hand side of the description box. The cooking method that appears will vary depending on the food category of your product. So you'll see different options appear for different foods, and this is based on the food category that it's been assigned. So for my hake, I'm actually going to select battered. Go back up here. Battered or crumbed, deep fried in oil. Perfect. For my batter recipe, I'm going to select used as a batter or coating fried in oil. Next, moving on to the fat in my recipe. Here, the fat uptake will be automatically calculated for me. I'm going to select, in this case, use as a medium for frying or deep frying ingredients. And you'll see that our system has automatically calculated the absorption of that oil in my recipe. So my allergens are automatically flagged based on the foods I've inputted. These are allergen indications, and you should review these before creating a food label or a menu to share with your customers to ensure they're correct. Once you've reviewed them, you can select these allergens have been verified. You can find more information on where each of the allergens are coming from by hovering over the different tiles. You'll see the contributing sources. You can enable additional allergens. So for example, if you know you have additional allergens in your kitchen, or if you wish to turn off certain allergens, just disable this automatic allergens option here and go ahead and turn on any other relevant allergens. Great. So once again, I'm going to enter in the total number of servings from a recipe, in this case 1. And once again, nutrition per 100 grams and per serving is automatically calculated for me. You do have the option to add in a weight change factor to your recipe to account for water loss or gain during the cooking process if you wish. This will improve the accuracy of your nutrition information, but just to note, this is not required if you're providing nutrition information per portion. Ideally, you would weigh your food before and after cooking to determine the weight change factor. A weight change factor of 1, as shown here, denotes no change. I can also look up different weight change factors using the magnifying icon here, and I can pull from the different factors based on my dish type if I want to. So in this case, I have a fish dish, white fish battered or breaded, and it was deep fried. Perfect, so now I've incorporated a weight change factors. Lovely. Great, so I think this is, for the most part, the recipe has now, it's pretty much complete. I obviously have the option to enter in cooking instructions and notes down below. My quid is automatically calculated for me. We do also have this reformulation tool and nutrition and health claims feature. We do have a separate webinar on this. This is available as an add-on in your account, and once again, if you're interested in learning more about this tool, just get in contact with our support team. They'd be happy to help you. And also, just to refer back to what I mentioned earlier on costings, you do have the option to add in additional information on cost just within the portion and pack size section of the recipe. So if you click on the cost here, you can see the option to enter in information on packaging, shipping, employee costs, waste, and so on. So now that I've created my recipe, the next step is, I suppose, to export the recipe. So I can export to a PDF, to a live report. I can email the report directly from Nutrilix if I want. Or, like I said, I can download it as a PDF. I can also export the recipe to a label. So I'm just going to spend the next 5 minutes of this webinar briefly showing you how you would go about creating a food label in Nutritics. So you just want to select the export to label maker option. A blank label will be created for you, so you can just name this. So I'm going to select create a label template. I'm going to name this front of pack label. So you do have the option to change the size of the label if you wish. So under the label setup tab, you'll see the width and height listed. I can make the label bigger or smaller as I like. I'll make this a bit bigger. I can scroll along on the left hand side to see the different elements which are available to me, so I can enable different elements, and this information is pulled from the recipe that we just analysed. I can use, in this case, I can use either a recipe photo, so you have the option obviously to enter in a recipe photo here. You can do that using an image on your computer, or either using or you can use a URL if you wish. You can also use your company logo if you want, so you can set that up under menu settings and preferences. I'm just selected to use the account logo there. Turn that off actually. If I scroll along here, you can see I can enter in dates, so I can enter in a best before date if I like, and I can have today's date automatically update on print. So I'm going to include best before date. I want to include my allergens as well, so I'll enable this. And I'm going to include the icons in this case. If there were any applicable claims, we didn't actually reformulate our recipe to include claims in this case, but you could include those there if you had those enabled on your account. Next, I just want to go ahead and enable or include a front of pack nutrition panel. We have a number of different front of pack options here. I think I'll turn on one with traffic lights. I can include my ingredient list, as well as country of origin if I like. So select Ireland in this case. Obviously you have a number of different options here. You can include a barcode if you want, you can include an address, you can include instructions for the customer for cooking, and so on. Once I have my label set up in the way I want, I can save it as a template for future use. So if I go to this toggle to the left hand side of the export to option, you'll see I can save this as a template. Now if I want to use this label at a later point in time when I go back and analyze another recipe, I can simply select the template and the label will be generated as per that template. You can directly you can print your label directly to a label printer or to any regular printer. We do actually provide label printers, so if that's something that you're interested in, you can contact our support team as well. You can export it to a live report also, as we did earlier with our recipe card as well. And just to note actually before I finish, with the recipe card you can customize the report that you see, so you can choose to include or uninclude items. So if you wanted to share this just with your kitchen staff, you can include only relevant information such as cooking instructions and ingredient list if you wanted. Okay, so I believe that brings us to the end of the webinar session. If you have any questions, just pop me a chat there or email us. But thank you very much for joining, and look forward to hearing from you. Thanks very much.